Hey guys, welcome to episode 11 of Mega Maniacs, and this episode is entitled Unholy Presence, Exposing the Sinister Spirits at World Harvest Church. And in this episode, I'm going to discuss some things about spiritual presence, demonic presence, and the experiences that I had while I was there, the experiences that people shared with me during my time there, and also going to go even a little bit deeper, because when you talk about certain spirits within any place, especially in the workplace, they can very much mimic burnout. And I think that people do experience burnout for sure, especially in a very high stress position. And if they're overworked, they're not getting enough rest, they're not getting enough time with their family. But we're talking about, in this situation, obviously a church that should be a Christian organization, and how a lot of these spiritual presences in this place, they definitely are signs of a certain kind of spirit. However, they can also mimic burnout, which I want to touch on as well. So during my time there, probably the first time that I ever had an experience that not only rattled me and scared me a little bit, but it kind of provoked something in me that I felt like, again, I needed to dig a little bit deeper. Why is this happening? Why would this person feel that they saw and felt something within the organization? And so I was sitting in my office one day, and a staff member, and this was very early on in starting there. So I started there in February of 2019. So I would say this was definitely before summertime of that same year. And someone came in to my office, and they were visibly shaken. They were almost out of breath, very fearful. I can't even really explain to you the look on their face, but it was almost terror, okay? And they came into my office, they shut my door, they didn't even ask if they could, they just came in, shut my door, sat down in one of the chairs behind, where my desk is. And this person, just for a little bit of context, worked in the executive wing. So I don't mean to kind of divert from what I was saying, but I want to make sure you kind of understand, if you haven't worked there, is my office as the HR director was in an area called A wing. So you do have to have some special access and privileges to get into that area. And other people in that area included the CFO, controller, accounting manager, at one point in time the social media office and their staff was back there. CHN is in a wing. One of the elders has an office back there. There's some music staff members that also have their offices in that A wing area. And I believe Valor's director of recruitment is also, her office is back there. So then you have to have additional access to get back to the executive wing, which is where the Parsleys have their quarters, if you will. It's basically a full home behind the scenes. There's, a bedroom and a library and kitchen, and there's also an additional area where the staff members that work for the Parsleys have to prepare their food and all of their favorite snacks and all that. And then their boardrooms back there, their offices are back there, and then the offices of the directors of the organization, or executive directors, I should say. And one of those people was my boss. So I didn't even have access back there, except for someone had to buzz me in. So I requested it several times because I would have to go back there to meet with my boss, and I wouldn't have access. So they always had to buzz me in. So anyways, back to the story. So this person that rushed in my office and was full of terror and fear worked back in that area. And when she came in, she said, I just saw a demon in executive wing. And when I say that, I literally have goosebumps all over my body, because I'm back reliving that experience. And I didn't know this person very well, but I knew her to be very honest and trustworthy and very much a woman of God. And I knew that she was under some stress. But again, the look on her face when she said that she saw a demon back there, and she literally refused to go back in there and quit that day on the spot. Now, a little bit of time would go by, and we would continue to reach out to her, and did get her to come back to work there, but that was also pretty short-lived, and then she ended up leaving again anyways, and probably was not on the best of terms, because she was, being mistreated already, and some of the other things that I've talked about in the other episodes, but being mistreated and then overworked, and not getting enough time at home, and probably all of the stresses that come along with that. So on top of this person in particular, I also had 2 other staff members during my almost 4 years there that either worked back in the executive wing very frequently, or their offices were back there. And 2 other people also told me that they thought that they had seen a demon back there. And I will tell you from my own experience, I didn't see anything, but I most certainly felt things. And there was certainly a different feeling once you cross that threshold from the A wing over to the executive wing. There was definitely a change in the energy, the atmosphere. It felt very oppressive, and I didn't like being back there. I didn't really want to be back there. When I went back there, I did it for real purposes, and then I got out of there as soon as possible. And I can only imagine what people feel like when they actually work back there, and then to see a demonic presence or feel a demonic presence. And again, these are other people's words, not mine, but from my own experience, I have said even before I did this episode that there was definitely a different energy feeling when you crossed over into that realm, if you will. So from there, I want to talk about a couple of things that I know that I heard over and over again. And I'm sure if you were a Valor student, if you worked at World Harvest Church or any of the entities at Valor, or even at Harvest Prep, I'm not as sure about Harvest Prep, but I know at the church and at Valor, there were always people being accused of having a Jezebel spirit. And I'm going to go into here in a moment what, signs of having a Jezebel spirit are. But I also want to, break down and discuss certain parts of this in particular, because I wouldn't disagree that there are evil spirits in that place, okay? But I don't believe that the Valor students or anyone else that just works, there in a support position is the people that bring this spirit into that place. The spirit exists because the leadership has not only allowed it to exist, but I also believe they brought the spirit in there in the first place, and they try to pin it on other people as if they're the ones that are, unholy, and they're the ones that are misbehaving and causing, all kinds of issues and toxicity within the organization. And it causes, a lot of division. And when you're talking about young, impressionable kids like these Valor students are, they may have come from a terrible situation, and they are looking at this place to be, a savior to them in a way that they're going to get closer to God. They're going to get an education that helps them live out what they feel like God has asked them to do or wants them to do. And they are not only very impressionable, but, probably more easily manipulated. But when you look up to people and you look at someone as your spiritual leader and spiritual guide, and someone that is supposed to help you in your relationship with God, and these are the very people that are making claims against you, that's devastating. And I believe that a lot of these kids believe that about themselves, and they didn't realize until they got out of the situation that they were not the ones necessarily with the issue, but they were experiencing issues in that place because of the people that they were dealing with. So, Valor students, there were constant claims that, students had this Jezebel spirit, and if they were not completely submissive and put up with the abuse that they were experiencing, they would be told, well, you have a Jezebel spirit. And, that's a manipulation tactic, especially, and not that I don't believe that the spirit exists, but like I said, I think there's other reasons why it exists, and not because these students brought them in there. So before I go into, some of these signs of this Jezebel spirit presence, I want to also say that not too long ago, it was probably a couple weeks ago, I heard a pastor that someone had shared something on Facebook or Instagram, and this pastor said that church leaders have to allow the Jezebel spirit to enter, and they can also abolish it. But again, I don't think that that's going to happen, because the head leadership of this organization, once you hear about some of these spirits, they seemingly are possessed by the spirit, in my opinion. And I'm going to tell you why a little bit more, but based on the other episodes and what we're going to discuss today, you can make your own decision and come to your own decision on whether we, just have a toxic work environment at a religious and Christian organization, or if there is, in fact, this spirit present there. So, signs of Jezebel spirit presence: controlling, manipulative spirit, very difficult to live or work with person that has this spirit. Oppressive, it causes dysfunction, especially in families. It's very insecure. It seduces people to commit sin. Suicidal, craves attention, blackmails people emotionally, discredits the character of others, lies, constantly giving false accusations, does not produce leaders, outbursts of anger, and narcissism is a manifestation of the Jezebel spirit. And I'm going to ask you now, does that sound familiar? Do every single one of these things, does that sound like it is, describing anyone that we know? And I also wrote, every time Satan wants to eliminate a man or a woman of God, he will send his two strongest spirits, the Antichrist and the Jezebel spirit. And, these spirits will infiltrate as long as they're allowed to. And, we're going to talk about impartation as well. But, these things, again, are spreading. And you may have your own opinion on, are some of these things the sins of the flesh and things that we just need to kill our flesh, or are these legitimate spirits that exist, especially in this place? And I do agree. I was having a conversation with someone not too long ago. I do believe that there are sins of the flesh, and that we have to make a decision every day that we're gonna, kill those sins of the flesh, if you will, to bring us closer to God and say, you know what, not my will, your will. Sometimes the things that I want to do or feel like doing are not godly. And so I have to, be in prayer, fasting, or whatever I need to do to make sure that I am, staying good with God and not making some of these other decisions. And, but I also know, based on my own experience, there's more in that place than fleshly desires and, just the sins of the flesh, if you will. There's a lot more going on there, not just from my experience, but again, from what I've heard from other people. So, signs of being spiritually attacked: feelings of anger and hopelessness, feelings of depression and anxiety, and difficulty sleeping. And I can't tell you how many times, people would come into my office and they just needed, sometimes they needed to just come unglued sometimes and scream and yell and get all of it out so that, we could kind of start fresh. But they just needed to vent to somebody that they knew was going to keep their information confidential, that it wasn't going to go right back to the people that worked in the executive wing. And they needed someone to listen and to give them advice and pray with them and help them understand, some of the things that they were feeling, which is what I tried to do. But when you have people, feeling like they want to kill themselves because they can't take, one more day of working without a day off, 50 days straight, they're not getting enough sleep, they're not being able to recharge their batteries, and just feeling completely oppressed, and not just by the feelings that they're having, but then they're being mistreated on top of all of that, being told that their work's not good enough, and that a little kid could be better at their job than what they are. And these are people that are tirelessly working to make the organization as successful as possible, and probably hoping that, some of the great things that they are doing, in spite of all of these other feelings, that they're going to get some recognition for it, and that not only would God be pleased with what they're doing, but that the Parsleys would also give them some recognition and be pleased with what they're doing. But that doesn't happen very often, unfortunately, and it just continues to be, more abusive. And so now we go to people that operate in the Jezebel spirit will always have similar characteristics, whether they are male or female. So again, I believe that some people may think, or when they think of Jezebel, they think female automatically, but the Jezebel spirit can be within male or female, and we're going to, talk about some of these characteristics. And again, just listen and see if any of these things sound familiar. Very demanding and controlling. They must be in control and get their way. They will manipulate you through statements to get you to feel sorry for them or make you feel indebted to them. Very insecure. They are never at peace. Compulsion to control and manipulate others constantly to get their way. Outbursts of anger to make sure you are afraid of what they can do. Master liars and deceivers, basically Academy Award winners in the worst way possible. Very prideful and arrogant, which the Leviathan spirit exhibits and partners with the Jezebel spirit. And I have an interesting thing about that, a story about that here in a minute. Others should serve you and give you whatever you want, and if they don't, they become very angry until you give in. Sexual control over others. They seek friendships and relationships with people with influence and power so they can control other people and ultimately cause confusion. Will buy your affections through gift giving so you feel obligated to them and they can operate and control over you. Living a double life. They appear to be loving, kind, and generous to the public and in front of the church, while behaving very evil behind closed doors. Oftentimes in a church setting, they will try to put their hands on you as they know they can control and manipulate you if they can draw you closer to them. And when I say put their hands on you, I'm not talking about abusive, which that has also happened. That's a whole other episode. But talking about the laying on of hands or touching you just in passing or touching you to pray for you. Will often try to pray for you and put their hands on you as they can seduce you subtly that way. If you are not a person of influence or power in your church or ministry, they will have no time for you. They treat those of insignificance with disdain and will not spend time with them because they are of no benefit to them. And, again, if you've watched any of the episodes, there's a lot of these things that happen where people that can be manipulated, they can be controlled, they do everything to please, the Parsleys and the head leadership. These are the people that usually will be brought closer in, closer to the family, closer to the people that are close to the Parsleys. And because they know that these people are going to be easier to control and manipulate than people that may have their own mind. They are looking for fruits of the Spirit. They're reading their Bible. They are discerning. And not that, good people have not been hurt, and they have also been manipulated and abused by the people that run this place, but or other people that are close to them for that matter. But it's harder to, when you are putting on the full armor of God every day and really praying and trying to stay protected while entering that place. And I'm saying this from my own experience because it most certainly was a thing for me. And that was one of the things I was told before I took that job, was to stay prayed up before I went in there. And I didn't really know exactly what they meant until after I was in the place and realized that I needed to definitely stay prayed up. And I passed that advice along to a lot of other people. But you can be very unaware a lot of times because of how you look up to people and the expectations that we have on people, that if they have pastor before their name, that they are good and they have our best interests at heart, and that even if they are to rebuke us, if you will, that it's out of love. And again, if you've watched the episodes or listened to anything that I've said in the other episodes, that, people are just taking, verbal and emotional and mental and spiritual and financial and physical beatings at this place. And that cannot be from God, in my opinion. Those kinds of things sound a lot more like somebody that's operating within this Jezebel spirit rather than someone that is trying to lead you in the right direction, in my opinion. So some of the things that, I experienced there, and also know that other people were experiencing, was, they would be on their way to work, and this was several people, not just one person. They would have to stop on the side of the road before getting to World Harvest so that they could throw up. They're literally so anxious and upset that they've got to enter this place that they are physically ill, and even feeling like, on Saturday and Sunday, there's always, I think at times, depending on where you work, you're kind of always dreading Monday, like, I wish the weekend was longer and I had more time with my family. But we're talking about, not only just a little bit of dread, but, almost anything, feeling like you can't get out of bed, and your body is hurting, and your stomach's hurting, and your head is hurting, and you feel anxious, or you feel depressed, and you feel like, why am I feeling like this? Why am I in this situation? And these are what multiple people experience, while working there. And one of the things for me that was very prevalent, because there was a season in my time there where I was terrified to go in the building. And when I tell you I was terrified to go in the building, I mean I just didn't want to go in, okay? So I started getting to work as early as I could, and I would sit out in my car and I would pray, and I would, listen to worship music, and try to prepare myself to go into this place. And I just could not understand, why I was feeling like this. Again, I'm getting chills everywhere, because it was just such a dreadful feeling, and not something, that you would wish on anybody, but really not expecting to feel like that within a church. And I will also say, when I was in this season, I wasn't particularly being treated badly. Everybody was pretty friendly with me. They thought that I did a good job as far as I know. I got several pay increases while working there. So there was really not a reason specifically for me to feel that way. But, I was hearing the stories of other people, but still, trying to help them through their feelings. But again, this season for me came over me, and it was just dreadful. That's really the only way that I can explain it. I was full of anxiety. I had a lot of stomach issues. I couldn't sleep well, and there were a lot of things going on in that place that were kind of mimicking other issues that I was having in my personal life. And it was whatever I could do to get, I was usually one of the first ones there. I would get in there as quickly as I could, get all the lights on, and then would just continue to pray, for the Lord's protection over me, and that I would be able to make it through the day, make it through the morning. Sometimes I just had to take it hour by hour. And during this time, because I did talk to one other staff member about it while I was there, I was plagued by demonic dreams. And I'm just getting the chills again too. And constantly having the name of Leviathan interrupting my thoughts, interrupting my dreams, interrupting my productivity, not just at home, but at work as well. And I just didn't understand what this was about. And I didn't, honestly, at that point in time, I just kept praying. I didn't really research it or look into it. I had people that were praying for me as well. But now that I'm doing, more research on this, it was crazy, when I was talking about the very prideful and arrogant, which, people that operate in the Jezebel spirit, that they have very similar characteristics, and the Leviathan spirit exhibits and partners with Jezebel. And so I heard of the Jezebel spirit several times, and not that I hadn't heard of Leviathan, but it again was something that was plaguing me constantly with the dreams and just always being in my head no matter what. I could, be singing songs, and there it was. I could be working on something, there it was. And it was just very plaguing. And I didn't know what to do about it, because I thought that I was doing everything that I could be doing at the time. And so that then leads me, I'm kind of all over the place, as I usually am. But talking about impartation. And I bring that up because I know it's taught at Valor. And in impartation, I think a lot of the times when it's being discussed is kind of being discussed in a positive way, that, I can lay my hands on you and impart things on you, or impart, gifts of the Spirit and that sort of thing. But I believe that you can also impart negative spirits, and that you need to be very careful about who you're allowing to put their hands on you, who you're allowing to pray with you, because not only, did we kind of already discuss that that's a manipulation tactic of, the spirit, but that this is something that's very big in the Pentecostal and apostolic faiths, and I don't believe, that there's anything wrong with it. But what I'm saying is that you need to be very careful on who you're allowing to put their hands on you and impart in you, because the people that are on that stage and are doing the preaching and doing the praying and choosing who they're, bringing up on stage and who they're laying hands on and that sort of thing, not only do they have basically every one of these characteristics of the Spirit, but I can assure you that I know for a fact that the things that are going on behind closed doors, when they think no one's watching, when they think that no one will believe the people that are witnesses to the things that they are doing, that these behaviors and these things that go on behind closed doors are demonic, plain and simple. And I am imploring you to open your Bible, open your eyes, and really look at what kind of fruit are these people producing, and what do these behaviors say about them. And I've tried to be very gracious, I believe, because I'm not trying to humiliate anyone. But I will also say in that same breath that the people that are, getting rich off the backs of very well-intentioned people are I'm sorry, I just want to say this in the correct way. They are doing and saying and operating in a way that is not only displeasing to God, okay, but again, it's very demonic, to the point of having affairs with married men within the church, using very hard and serious drugs, partying and using said drugs on Fridays and Saturdays and then showing up on Sundays to lay their hands on you. And I don't think that that's the kind of spirits that you want to be running through your body. Now, if they are, I guess that's your prerogative, but I would not want them to even come close to me, let alone touch me, because I know without a shadow of a doubt that these things are true, that there's proof behind these things. And again, trying to be very gracious, because the point is not to humiliate, but I believe that there is a strong point here that God wants to have his way. He wants us to make a choice to follow him and to be, a good Christian, and to have fruits of the Spirit, and to impart those things on other people, and create love, and bringing people together, and really what it's like to have Jesus and God living inside you and living in your heart, and not this nastiness and abuse of people and abuse of power. And the worst part of this is that you have someone that has been on TV for 30, 40 years, and he's aware of all of the things that I've already mentioned and does nothing about it. And what does that even, how can you know that someone is behaving the way that I just mentioned, and you allow them to get on stage and to preach and to lay hands on people and to, speak in tongues and do all of these things, knowing that the night before or 2 nights before, all of this demonic activity and choices were being made, and now you want them to touch and impart and pray for people on that stage? That's just insane to me, and really just disgusting, frankly. And I, again, am here to be as respectful as possible, but these things need to be said and they need to be discussed, because these people have operated and been unchecked for all of this time. They think the rules do not, apply to them. They think they're above reproach, and they treat people like garbage and throw them away like trash when they're done with them and done using them, or they can't manipulate them anymore. And they've been on this reign of terror, and it really needs to stop, because not only are their lives, seemingly in shambles based on their behavior, but they're ruining a lot of other people and a lot of other people's lives for what they're tolerating and what they're doing, and then criticizing other people that are trying to do the right thing. So from there, I want to talk about burnout, because like I said, I try to have a good perspective on things, and I want to, although I believe, these spirits and demonic presences are certainly a thing in this place, I also want to, give the other perspective, because, some people don't believe in that, or they may say, that sounds like somebody that is plagued by burnout, not necessarily, being plagued by, some spirit or the people that are operating in this spirit. So the top 10 signs of burnout, so I'm going to talk about those first, and then what causes burnout. So the top 10 signs of burnout: can't get out of bed in the morning, hard to sleep at night, feeling irritable all the time, can't focus or stay productive, hating your job even if at one time you loved it, feeling like a failure, avoiding people, hard to get creative juices flowing, headaches and or muscle pain, stomach issues, including overeating or undereating. And what causes burnout. So this is, the HR side of me strictly. So what causes burnout, having signs of those, and then what causes them. No work-life balance. No recognition or rewards for a job well done. Dysfunctional work environment. Lack of support, especially from leadership. Being required to do things you don't want to do, i.e. mandatory involuntary overtime. Feeling like you have to express emotions you don't actually feel. In my case, having to terminate, fire, and write people up that didn't deserve it. And the list, can go on and on depending on your experience there. And unhealthy and toxic relationships in the workplace, especially with your boss. So these are, kind of the top causes of burnout. And I think most people, especially during COVID, would say that they have felt some of these things, all of these things, or even, outside of COVID. But I think COVID kind of, really set the tone for a lot of people to either recognize that they were already burned out or they got burned out. And we have to be cognizant that we are taking care of ourselves, but especially when you feel like you're being attacked, and maybe just not by the people that you are working with or that are your bosses, but when you are feeling spiritually attacked, you need to be able to discern that. You need to be able to find in your Bibles where it talks about that. How can you work through those things? How do you expose these things? And how do you move forward when you feel like you're in this situation? And I found a lot of solace in, again, just my relationship with God on a personal and private state, but making sure that, I was prepared at all times, or felt like I was prepared, but being able, to help people through what they were experiencing there and trying to help them work through it. And I know that, God had me there for a purpose, and He also released me when it was time to be done with that place. But had I left when I wanted to, it would have been long before I did. And I'm glad that I stayed as long as I did, because I do believe that there was a lot of good that came out of that, and some healing as well. But there was far more, pain and negative and evil things going on behind the scenes. And, I could talk about these things for days, of the things that I was a part of, that I witnessed, that I had to talk to people about, that I'm questioning, why are we allowing leadership to behave this way? Why can they go unchecked? And who's going to handle these situations? Because some of them are getting out of control. And, it just kind of fell on deaf ears, unfortunately. And so, like I always do, I have some Bible verses, to read. And hopefully they are helpful to some that have worked there and maybe still work there to help them through, some of their pain. So the first one is Romans 16:17. Now I urge you, brothers and sisters, to watch out for those that create divisions and obstacles contrary to the teaching that you learned. Avoid them, because these people do not serve our Lord Christ, but their own appetites. They deceive the hearts of the unsuspecting with smooth talk and flattering words. And the next one is, and we could dissect that, but I think that if you have worked there, or if you've even watched the ministry, that that there are several sides to the people that you're dealing with, and one minute they can be this way and the other minute they can be this way. But I only saw division, I only saw obstacles, I only saw and felt the oppressiveness of the place. So, and again, very narcissistic, very my way or the highway, very much do as I say, not as I do. So the next Bible verse is 1 Peter 5:8. Be alert and of a sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And again, when you're very vulnerable and you are, open to receiving because you feel like you're in a great place and these are people that love you and respect you and want the best for you, I believe that you are more open than you might be with, just some Joe Schmo that you met on the street. And that is a problem at that place. That is a problem at World Harvest Church, because the people that are supposed to be the ones speaking life over you and blessings over you, I believe, are doing the exact opposite, even if that's not necessarily the words that are coming out of their mouth. And then the last verse is Ephesians 6:11. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. And that's actually, that whole chapter is very good. It goes into more about the full armor of God and what that looks like. And again, that was something that I had to do on a daily basis before I walked into that place, because I was feeling so attacked and down, and I did not know sometimes how I was going to pick myself up, how I was going to continue to do my job well and help other people, but also be the kind of person I needed to be at home and the kind of person that I needed to be outside of that place. And it took a toll on me at times. And I know, again, because of my experiences and the stories that I've heard from a lot of people, they have definitely not only felt that way, the things that I already mentioned, but, just feeling so attacked and not understanding why it's happening, especially because they're, in this church and in what's supposed to be a godly place. And the people that are in leadership there, they worship themselves, okay? They have a hallway full of their accolades, and in A Wing they have more hallways of pictures of themselves. And I don't know that if I ever saw a picture of Jesus in the whole place. Not that means that you're some top tier Christian or something, but there's definitely a lot of emphasis put on Rod Parsley and what he's done, and his family, and not so much what God has done for us and why he is the king, but maybe the king of that palace and in their lives is Rod Parsley himself and not God. So I will end there, because like I said before, I could keep going and going for days upon days on this topic, and there's probably enough for us to do another episode. So let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and for all of your messages, and stay tuned for next week for episode 12. Have a good evening.